why the Lutherans don't fit in, a story. Or maybe I've been thinking about this since we were in Ireland and seeing this generations long, the troubles, the fights between the Protestants and the Catholics, and thinking about, well, where are the Lutherans in this mess? And I remember a story. Back when I was a baby pastor in Colorado, I had the idea of doing a series of conferences where it'd be hosted at different churches, different teachers would be there. I wanted to have five different theological traditions: Calvary Chapel, Southern Baptist, Liberal Episcopalian, Roman Catholic, and Lutheran. And the idea was we would have 5 different conferences, 5 different topics, 5 different positions, and compare and contrast. So I invited the pastors from the 4 other churches to get together. We were eating at Lupita's off of Colfax Avenue in Aurora, Colorado. And we were sitting there getting to know each other. By the way, this series of conferences never happened. The Episcopalian lady priestess said that she couldn't faithfully represent the Episcopalian position. The Southern Baptists didn't want his people seeing a lady pastor. The Calvary Chapel didn't think the venue was going to be big enough. So it was just me and Father Bert had 2 conferences we hosted. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, but we all got together for this dinner. It was like a joke waiting for a punchline. And as we were talking, the lady Episcopalian priestess was asking, how long are your sermons? We sort of went around the horn. She says, I preach for about 5 minutes. The priest says, my homilies are right around 7 minutes. The Calvary Chapel and the Baptist guy were both like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And there I was in the middle. I said, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes. And the Episcopalian lady said, well, that's because we, pointing to the Catholic priest, we're from a sacramental tradition. And you guys, Calvary Chapel and Southern Baptist, you guys are from a word position, a word tradition. And she looked at me and she says, I don't know about you. Now, I think she accidentally stumbled across something there that is a helpful diagnostic to look at the history of the church, is that there's kind of 2, impetuses. You have the ancient church, and that is the sacramental churches. You have the Orthodox, the Roman church, you have probably the traditional Anglican churches, and maybe in some ways the mainline denominations. You have the sacrament. They emphasize the sacramental life of the church. They're liturgical. They have a generous view of church history. They oftentimes have a high regard for the clergy and so forth. So you have that on the one hand. And then on the other hand, you have the word tradition. Probably the Protestant tradition, most clearly captured in the Bible church phenomenon, the non-denominational churches. We preach verse by verse, expository preaching, the fundamentalist side of the church, which would have a less generous view to church history and would not emphasize the sacrament. In fact, the sacramental churches reject sola scriptura, and most of the word churches reject the means of grace, God's working in the sacraments, their ordinances. And these 2 theological emphases are pushing against each other. The word tradition is anti-sacrament, and the sacrament tradition is anti-word. Now that might be stating it pretty strongly, but it shows up for us, like the Lutherans, and I think this is where we are, because we're like, the Word gives us the sacraments, and the sacraments bring us the Word. In fact, we have a sacramental understanding of the Word and a Word understanding of the sacraments. That they're bound together. I suppose it's like magnets. You know, if you reverse a magnet, they repel each other. You kind of can't. But if you flip them, then they, whoop. And if you're in that word tradition, then you look at the sacrament tradition, like the Orthodox and the Catholic, and you look at the Lutherans and you think, you're just like the Catholics. And if you're in the sacramental tradition, you look at those, you've forgotten the history of the church, you've abandoned the doctrine of the fathers, and you look at the Lutherans the same way. Oh, you're just like them. You're like the Protestants, you're the worst of the Protestants. So that when you're in one or two of these traditions that are kind of separated from one another, the other looks suspicious to you. I think my thesis is that it is the Lutheran Church where these two theological directions join up to one another. We have the sacraments. Why? Because Jesus institutes them in His Word. His Word says, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey all that I've commanded. And look, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. That's Word and sacrament. It's all together. So, if you're a YouTube theologian, and you're a Lutheran theologian, I wonder if this has some explanatory power about why the Lutheran Church continues to be the lonely way. And if you're looking around, hey, I'm giving these Lutherans a bit of a shake, then hopefully this helps you understand the theological conversation that's swirling around you as well. Anyway, just a few thoughts for today. I'd love to know your own thoughts below. God's peace be with you.